In the quiet strength of Stoic masculinity, there exists a truth that many men overlook. Respect is not demanded, it is earned, and it is sustained through the boundaries a man sets for himself and for others. When a man lacks boundaries, he may temporarily gain attention, affection, even admiration, but it will be short-lived. Boundaries are not walls meant to push people away. They are the invisible lines that tell others, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I will and will not allow. For women especially, boundaries are not just attractive, they are a deep signal of strength, self-awareness, and integrity. Without them, a man becomes easily swayed, too accommodating, and eventually loses the very respect he hopes to gain. The first boundary that defines a man in the eyes of a woman is the boundary of self-respect. This is not arrogance, and it is not pride for pride's sake. It is an unwavering commitment to honor one's own time, values, and well-being. A man who respects himself will not bend his morals just to please someone, nor will he tolerate being treated as a backup plan. He understands that love and respect are not earned through endless sacrifice or approval-seeking, but through being true to himself. This type of man does not need to loudly announce his worth. His actions, consistency, and calm self-control make it clear. Women respect men who can say no without anger and yes without desperation. When she sees that he is capable of walking away from situations that compromise his integrity, she knows she cannot simply manipulate or push him into submission. The second boundary that elevates a man in a woman's eyes is emotional self-control. A man who flies into fits of anger or collapses into self-pity whenever things get tough is telling the world he does not yet have mastery over himself. In Stoic masculinity, emotional self-control is not about suppressing feelings, but about mastering them. Women respect men who can remain grounded in moments of stress or conflict because it demonstrates strength, wisdom, and leadership. This doesn't mean a man becomes cold or detached. It means he expresses his emotions in a measured, intentional way. When she challenges him, tests his patience, or tries to provoke an emotional reaction, his ability to stay calm shows her that he is not reactive to every storm. She may not always agree with him, but she will respect the man who does not let his emotions dictate his actions. The third boundary is the protection of personal purpose. A man without a clear direction is easily swayed by the opinions and desires of others. But a man with a mission, be it in his career, personal growth, or life's vision, knows that his path is his own to walk. Women may admire charm, looks, or humor, but they respect purpose. A man who allows his goals to be derailed simply to accommodate someone else's whims communicates that he values approval over his own destiny. Boundaries in this area mean he allocates time for his work, his growth, and his ambitions without apology. It means that no matter how much he loves a woman, he will not let romance consume him to the point of abandoning his purpose. A woman might test this boundary by demanding more time, more attention, more sacrifices than are healthy. But when he maintains his focus and invites her to be part of his journey, not the center of it, she sees a man worth following because he is leading himself first. The fourth boundary is the refusal to tolerate disrespect. This is where many men falter because they confuse patience with passivity. Stoic masculinity does not mean accepting poor treatment with a smile. It means calmly but firmly addressing when a line is crossed. A man who allows disrespect, whether in the form of sarcasm meant to belittle, insults, or dismissive behavior, is teaching others that it's acceptable to treat him poorly. Women test this boundary in subtle ways, perhaps interrupting him repeatedly, disregarding his opinions, or making jokes at his expense in front of others. A man who respects himself will call it out or remove himself from the situation without drama. He does not retaliate with cruelty, nor does he sulk in silence. He addresses it directly. This quiet but firm stance tells her that while he can be kind, he will not be a doormat. Over time, this boundary becomes one of the strongest pillars of mutual respect. The fifth boundary is mastery over one's time and energy. In a world where distraction is constant, a man who is selective about where he invests his focus stands apart. Women respect men who have a clear sense of priority and who do not allow their time to be consumed by trivial demands. This boundary means he does not always drop everything to respond instantly, he does not overextend himself to avoid disappointing others, and he does not spend hours on activities that add no value to his life. Instead, he chooses with intention, time for work, for growth, for friends, for rest, and for the people who matter most. When a woman sees that he values his own time, she is far more likely to value it as well. If he is always available, always willing to rearrange his life at the slightest request, he signals that his schedule is meaningless, and soon, so is his presence. In practicing these boundaries, a man not only gains respect from women, but also from himself. That self-respect radiates outward, changing the way he moves through the world. He no longer needs to chase validation because his sense of worth is not dependent on anyone's approval. In turn, women feel more drawn to him, not because he tries to be everything they want, but because he stands firmly as himself. There is an undeniable magnetism in a man who knows his limits, his purpose, and his worth. These boundaries also serve as a filter. They naturally remove people who are unwilling to respect them, leaving room for relationships built on genuine admiration and trust. Women who are used to men with no boundaries may initially push against them, testing to see if they hold firm. But the man who stands his ground without hostility shows that his boundaries are not threats, they are standards. And a woman who respects herself will ultimately respect the man who has them. In the philosophy of Stoic masculinity, boundaries are not a set of rules imposed on others. They are commitments a man makes to himself. They are a reflection of self-discipline, wisdom, and the understanding that true respect comes not from controlling others, but from mastering oneself. When a man lives by these principles, he does not need to demand respect. It is freely given, because it is clear he gives it to himself first. The fifth and final boundary that consistently earns deep respect is the refusal to betray one's own moral compass for the sake of approval. Too often, men compromise their principles just to avoid conflict, to please others, or to be liked in the moment. But in the long run, that erodes not only self-respect, but also the respect of the people around them. Stoic masculinity teaches that one's values must be non-negotiable. This doesn't mean being rigid to the point of arrogance, but rather standing firm when it truly matters. A man who is willing to walk away from situations that demand he betray his values sends a powerful message. His self-worth is not for sale. Women respect this deeply because it shows he is governed by something higher than fleeting emotions or short-term gains. There is also an emotional dimension here. A man grounded in stoic boundaries does not take every disagreement personally. He understands that setting and enforcing boundaries will sometimes make people, yes, even women, feel temporarily frustrated or upset. But he doesn't crumble under that discomfort. He knows that a fleeting reaction is not a true measure of the relationship's health. The real measure is whether, over time, both people respect and trust each other more because of those boundaries. And often the answer is yes. Respect grows in the soil of consistency. When these 5 boundaries, respect for self, emotional self-control, non-negotiable values, guarding of time, and independence from constant validation, are lived out day after day, something profound happens. The man no longer needs to demand respect. He earns it effortlessly. Women respond differently. They listen more intently, they test less often, and they offer more genuine admiration. The relationship shifts from a tug-of-war for control to a balanced dynamic where mutual respect is the foundation. And here's the truth. Women are drawn to men they respect. Attraction without respect fades quickly, but when respect is present, attraction deepens over time. A stoic man understands that his mission is not to be liked in every moment, but to be respected in the long run. That respect is built through boundaries, clear, fair, and consistently upheld. In the end, these boundaries are not just about relationships with women. They are about the relationship a man has with himself. When he sets these boundaries, he is telling himself, I am worth protecting, my time is worth valuing, my principles are worth upholding. And once a man believes that deeply, others, women included, can't help but believe it too. So remember this, set your boundaries, hold your ground, and let the respect come naturally. It always will. And so in the end, the essence of a man's strength lies not in how loud he speaks or how forcefully he acts, but in the quiet confidence of his boundaries. These boundaries are not walls meant to keep love out, but gates designed to let in only what nurtures and uplifts. A man who knows his worth, stands by his principles, and honors his values will always command respect, not by demanding it, but by living in a way that makes it inevitable. In this, respect becomes not a prize to chase, but a natural result of who he chooses to be. Subscribe for more.